Cowboy Bebop. It's an anime pretty much everyone has heard of by this point, and for good reason. It's not just one of the best anime series ever produced, but one of the best TV shows in general. It takes place in a bleak future and follows an odd assortment of bounty hunters who, because of various circumstances, all end up working together on the same spaceship named Bebop. Each episode was like its own short movie paying homage to a different genre of film. You had the blaxploitation episode, the alien episode, the gritty Hong Kong crime drama episode, and so on. But the best thing about it all was that all of these different styles and tones were wrapped together to create something cohesive and unique. The cast are all deeply flawed individuals who you quickly come to love as the show progresses. It's no wonder then that after the show ended, people wanted more. They wanted to see more adventures from Spike, Jet, Faye, Ed, and Ayn. And that's exactly what we got in the form of manga, a feature-length animated movie, and what we'll be exploring in the next couple videos, video games. Yeah, there were games. 2 of them. Neither made it outside of Japan, sadly. That's pretty odd considering the massive impact it had in the West, thanks mainly to the constant reruns on the Cartoon Network Adult Swim block. A foreign concept to us Brits. We never got any cool anime on television, and that includes Cowboy Bebop. But none of us, not even the state, got to experience the games. I have some good news though to take the sting off of that fact. They're not very good. Hello everyone, Snickety here, and I'm once again joined by Sachiko, the librarian of my obscure, esoteric game collection. And yes, I did steal my theme song from this title screen. The first one we'll be taking a look at is Cowboy Bebop for the original PlayStation, released in May 1998, during the show's initial airing in Japan. Before we dive into the game itself, let's appreciate this cover art for a moment. It has the cast huddled around Ed, watching her play this very game. The back of the box even shows it from the opposite angle. Talk about metal. Anyway, the game is an on-rails space shooter where you play as Spike, piloting the Swordfish 2 and fighting a bunch of generic enemies. Yeah, you don't get to control the characters directly, which is pretty disappointing. This is like if they made a Ghost in the Shell game where you can only play as the Fuchikoma. Oh wait, there's an unusual issue I encountered with this game. For whatever reason, the voices never sync up with the character portraits on screen. To say it's out of sync would be an understatement. It's more like the voices are always before or after where they should be, leading to humorous moments where Faye appears to be speaking with Jet's voice. I was originally playing this on a chipped PlayStation 2. Afterwards, I tried it on a chipped PlayStation 1 and got the exact same thing. If I had to guess, I'd say it's because it's an NTSC-J PlayStation game running on a PAL system, so the speed is slightly off. Normally that wouldn't matter with PlayStation games, but this game is designed in a weird way. I was tinkering around with the sound files on PC and found that the voices are mixed into the music. If the music is slightly off, so are the voices. This is something you should consider before importing. At any rate, it runs properly on PC emulation, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. The Swordfish 2 controls decently for the most part. You have your default machine guns, which you can fire indefinitely, and the Ruby Laser, a weapon you may recognise from the show. It's that big bulky plasma cannon Spike uses every now and then. The Ruby Laser has a longer range and damage output, but you can't use it constantly. There's a cooldown time, so make sure you don't miss. You can also equip homing missiles and something called the Energy Bolt from the upgrade screen. The controls for these secondary weapons are weird though. You have to hold down square to lock on and then X to fire. You press both with your thumbs, so it just feels awkward. They couldn't have mapped this to L1 or R1 or something? Better yet, let's just cut out the middleman and get rid of this 2-button crap. What L1 and R1 are actually used for is to rotate your ship. It's cool, but otherwise useless. However, if you double tap the buttons, you can, and I think you know where I'm going with this, you can do a aileron roll. That is the correct term for that aerobatic maneuver. And yeah, it does give you some invincible frames, so it is pretty useful. Make no mistake, Cowboy Bebop for PS1 is not a good game. The first big giveaway is the camera. It never feels like it's in the right place. The ship is rarely in the centre of the screen. It's always drifting off to the bottom corners, sometimes off screen altogether. This game is a good example of how to do on-rails gameplay like this wrong. There's a fixed path that's always advancing forward, but it doesn't feel natural at all. You'll be doing one thing, like trying to shoot an enemy for instance, and then the game decides that your attention is better spent over here. It's not intuitive, and it draws attention to itself in a way that better games of this type do not. This is especially noticeable during the second stage. This stage makes me nervous. You're flying between these buildings, and it's sometimes unclear which direction you're meant to go next. I find myself being forced into buildings by these abrupt, sharp turns. What's going on? What is going on? Holy shit. It feels like you're being pulled by a rubber band. There is one specific part that is so confusing, I can't believe it made it into the final game. It looks like you can fly through the buildings here, but nope, you die. You can follow those arrows on your reticule, but you still end up dead. Just look at this madness. After trying this more times than I care to admit, I figured out that you have to follow Jet above the buildings. But even then I crashed because of how confusing the whole thing is. It really makes you distrust the game design, and that's never a good thing. The entire game is like this, but it's most obvious during this second stage. The game also has areas where you have free movement in any direction, similar to the all-range mode in Star Fox 64. These sections are reserved for the end stage bosses, such as the first one here. Because of how small the area is, you don't get much room to maneuver. Your chance at getting a good shot at the boss will be over before you know it. And then you have to turn around. But in order to do so, you have to get enough distance by flying in the opposite direction, leaving you open to fire. Rinse and repeat. This stuff is never fun. I was never really a fan of it in Star Fox either, but at least there you could speed up, slow down, and perform an Immelman turn. I'm all about the correct aerobatic terminology in this video, trust me. Here you've got no choice but to hope you don't get shot. Also, there's a couple irritations that make these sections unnecessarily difficult. The transition from on-rails to all-range is dreadful. It flips you upside down out of nowhere. What? Why? This game has a nasty habit of confusing you just as you reach the boss area. The second boss is deadly for this, as it can hit you when it first rises and take off half your health. This game does not have checkpoints, by the way, so if you die, you go right back to the start of the stage. Or scene, as it's called in-game. The other irritation during these boss sections has to do with your aileron roll. Sachi! Don't you dare say it! The camera rolls with you here when it doesn't ordinarily. Why? It's so jarring and it makes it much more difficult to use. Why did you change the rules, game? After that awful second stage, the game goes a little easier on you. This stage has awesome music and is much more fun.
I order you to launch Gundam! Get out there!
It's some sort of European seaside town. It still has weird, confusing moments every now and then, but it's less obvious. The fourth stage has you in space fighting an armada of battleships. I really like the look and feel of this stage for one reason. Look at the stars. There's a kind of effect where they blur as you move the ship, and it looks really cool. Otherwise, this stage is overly cluttered and is visually a mess. There's just so much stuff going on from this point forward. It gets really hard to look at. It's kind of psychedelic. Maybe this entire game is just another bad mushroom trip.
This here is the stairway to heaven. You know that, don't you?
Obnoxious little frog.
The sixth and final stage is extremely difficult.
I'll go it alone from here.
You fly down into this tight corridor and the game throws everything it has at you. You'll probably survive, but only with a sliver of health left, which is all you'll have to fight the end stage boss. It's a giant electric snake thing. Words fail me. It has all of the problems I mentioned with the first boss, but to the extreme. It's difficult even getting a clear shot on this thing because of how thin it is. You better beat that corridor with most of your health, or you are not beating this. This is where I got stuck playing on normal difficulty. I think I may have chosen the wrong weapon loadout. Between levels you're given a certain amount of points to spend on upgrading your ship. As I mentioned previously, you can purchase homing missiles and the energy bolt, but you can only equip one at a time, not including the ruby laser. I tried them both out and was unimpressed. The homing missiles are slow and awkward to use. The energy bolt is okay, but it's for close range only, so you might as well just use your machine guns. The loadout I recommend is the fully upgraded machine guns and ruby laser. Don't even waste your time with the hardpoint weapons. There's 3 levels to each weapon, but you don't need to purchase them in order. You can go straight from level 1 to level 3, and I recommend doing this as you'll be spending less points, but it also means you'll be weaker during some missions. You'll need to have fully upgraded weapons for that final stage though, so try to save your points. I tried it again on easy and this boss is still a nightmare. After you beat it, the screen will ominously fade to black and you'll be faced with the final boss. A corridor of hell. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be looking at here. Is this the game's bad guy? This electric glowworm? Is it an alien? Some sort of machine? I confuddled. What's going on here? I mean, story-wise, what's this game's deal? Truth be told, I'm not 100% sure. There's no translation available for the cutscenes, so I had to do my own using the manual. Take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, because there's probably going to be some erroneous details in there, I'm sure. Because of an astral gate accident, and no, not the same one that blew up part of the moon, the Bebop crew end up in another dimension. Wait, what? What, now we're bringing alternate dimensions into the Bebop lore? Next you'll be introducing aliens as... Oh my god, they actually did it. No, that is not Ein wearing a headset. That is some sort of Chewbacca alien, named Walken.
This guy is unfucking believable.
He is a member of the Resistance fighting the evil Imperial forces. Those are the enemies that are attacking you throughout the game. Other original characters include Rodan, no, not the Toho monster, a character that makes contact with the Bebop when they first arrive in this universe, Maria, a woman you save from the Imperials, and finally Debit, the leader of the Resistance. Debit. What is it with Resistance leaders in Japanese games having stupid names?
I'm Maxwell Cougar.
So basically the plot is the Bebop rescues the Resistance members and helps them take down the evil empire. Bandai, if you wanted to make a Star Wars game, you should have just made a Star Wars game. Why'd you have to drag the good name of Cowboy Bebop into this? It's so out of character for the series too. Could you ever see the characters from the show single-handedly taking on the entire army? Spike almost died fighting 3 fighter jets in the movie, but here we're meant to believe he can topple an empire. And strangely, this game doesn't really have a villain. Unless you count that snake thing I showed earlier. Was this all his doing? I'm asking a genuine question, Sachiko. I really don't know. As bizarre as this game is, it did have quite a lot of staff from the show working on it. Shinichiro Watanabe, the show's creator, is credited as the scenario advisor. But that probably only means they showed him this nonsense when he was drunk at karaoke one night. The original character designs for this game were done by Toshihiro Kawamoto, the same character designer for the show. You can tell with all the new characters but Walken and Rodan, who don't look like they belong to the Bebop universe at all. Hiroshi Takeuchi provided the game's cover art. He worked as a key animator and animation director on the show. Strangely, there seems to be a myth with this game that Yoko Kanno, the composer for the anime's iconic music, also composed this game's soundtrack. As far as I can tell, this is false. The game's credits list Shinsuke Sugiyuchi as the composer and has no mention of Kanno. The Wikipedia page correctly credits Sugiyuchi, but then contradicts itself in the same article by saying Kanno composed the music. Many websites and videos have parroted this myth, including myself, earlier this year. And apparently it was composed by Yoko Kanno. I am not 100% sure on that. I remember reading that it was composed by Yoko Kanno.
That is incorrect, boss!
That video sucks, by the way. Don't watch it. But yeah, anyone saying Kanno composed this game's soundtrack likely didn't do research beyond the Wikipedia page. I'm looking at you, Did You Know Gaming? Maybe you should also invest in an underpaid game librarian. I guess it's because we all want to believe Yoko Kanno composed a cheesy arcade-style soundtrack. However, it simply makes no sense next to Kanno's other work. And let's not forget that it sounds nothing like the music from the show. At all. It's not even the same genre of music. Bebop, which I think should be obvious considering it's in the title. I don't dislike the soundtrack to this game though. Once you get over how not Cowboy Bebop sounding it is, you realise something. It's awesome. It may not fit the show, but it definitely fits this game. It's kooky arcade fun, and it really elevates an otherwise forgettable game. The PS1 game isn't good, but there's far worse games you could be playing. While doing this review, this game grew on me a little. It really has a certain charm to it. Even if the gameplay is far below something like Star Fox, this game even does the same thing as those games where your teammates show up on screen to tell you stuff, and you can even piss them off by shooting at them. It's a little disappointing you can't play as Faye and Jet. There's 3 ships aboard the Bebop, but we only get to control the Swordfish too? Lame. It's only 6 stages long as well, so a single playthrough will take you about an hour or so. It may be lacking in content, but it doesn't overstay its welcome, like the other Bebop game. Join us next time, when we'll be taking a look at the Cowboy Bebop game for the PlayStation 2. Is it more faithful to the show? Well, you'll just have to wait and find out. Until next time.